To the next session, the toxicity of Ayurvedic herbs and formulation, a critical analysis by Dr. P. Ram Manohar. Dr. P. Ram Manohar has been contributing in the field of Ayurvedic research since the last 30 years. He is a renowned personality engaged in global promotion of Ayurveda and has made research visits to US, UK, Canada, Brazil, Italy, Russia, and so on. Ayurveda Ratan Award from UK, Dhanvantari Award from Nature Fit, Bishak Bhushana Puraskaram from Vagbada Sarani, Dr. C. Dwaraknath Memorial Award, Bharadwaja Puraskaram Award are a few to name in the long list of awards conferred on him. He is presently serving as director at Amrita Center for Advanced Research in Ayurveda and is the research head of the school level research committee of Amrita School of Ayurveda and a PhD guide at Amrita. He is a principal investigator of IUCL project launched in March 2023. He is also serves as associated faculty at Southern California University of Health Science, USA. With great respect, I welcome Dr. P. Ram Manohar to please take over the session.
Om Amriteshwarya Namaha. My humble pranams at the lotus feet of Amma. Pranams to all the dignitaries, all the participants who have come here for today's one-day seminar on pharmacovigilance. I'd like to start by sharing an instance of how an Ayurveda doctor took a bold step to identify some of the malpractices in our own field. So I'm just going to play the audio. So you must have heard that recently the drugs controller in care of Kerala government, the Ayurveda section, came out with a list of Ayurvedic medicines that were found to contain allopathic medications, actually adulterated with allopathic medication. This list was actually released quite some time back, not very far away, and there were a lot of pressure in not releasing this information, but it was the effort of many Ayurveda doctors themselves, at the risk of, even this was used by Abby Phillips against Ayurveda, but this is a very bold step. So I will just play this audio here.
ഈ ലിസ്റ്റ് പുറത്ത് ആൾക്കാരറിയാൻ ഒരു ഇൻഡയറക്റ്റായിട്ട് കാരണം ഞാനാണ്. കാരണം എൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് വന്ന ഒരു പേഷ്യൻ്റ് ഈ പെയിൻ നിവാരൺ ചൂർണം 1-2 മാസമായിട്ട് കഴിക്കുന്നു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് വന്നിരുന്നു. അവർക്കത് നിർത്തുമ്പോൾ ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് വേദന വരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അവരുടെ മുഖം നോക്കിയപ്പോൾ ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് ഈ മൂൺ ഫേഷ്യസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പോലെ വീർത്തിരിക്കുന്നു, ചുമന്ന് വീർത്തിരിക്കുന്നു. അപ്പം ഞാനത് ചോദിച്ചപ്പോൾ അവർ പറഞ്ഞു എൻ്റെ കവിള് ഇപ്പോഴാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ ആയത്, മുമ്പ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു, ഇപ്പോൾ ഈ മരുന്ന് കഴിച്ചതിന് ശേഷമാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ ആയത്. പക്ഷെ അവർ ആ മരുന്ന് നിർത്താൻ തയ്യാറില്ല, കാരണം അത്രയും അത് നിർത്താൻ പറ്റില്ല എന്നുള്ളൊരു ആറ്റിറ്റ്യൂഡായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ എനിക്കൊരു സംശയം തോന്നി. അങ്ങനെ ഞാനത് നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ഇവരുടെ ഈ കവിളിൻ്റെ ഫോട്ടോ ഇട്ടു. അതിട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ പല ഡോക്ടേഴ്സും പറഞ്ഞു ഞങ്ങൾക്കും ഇതുപോലെ അനുഭവമുണ്ട്, ഇതുപോലെ ഇത് ഈ മരുന്ന് കഴിച്ചിട്ട് പലരുടെയും മുഖം ഇങ്ങനെ വീർത്ത് വരുന്നുണ്ട് എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ അത് ആ ഗ്രൂപ്പിലെ ഒരു ഡോക്ടർ, അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ഈ ഡ്രഗ് കൺട്രോളർ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റുമായിട്ടൊക്കെ വലിയ അടുപ്പമുള്ള ആളാണ്. അദ്ദേഹം ഇതെനിക്ക് അന്വേഷിച്ചേ പറ്റുമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് പോയി ഡ്രഗ് കൺട്രോളറെ കണ്ടു. ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു മരുന്നിനെ കുറിച്ചൊന്ന് പഠിക്കണമല്ലോ, ഇങ്ങനെ റിപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, ആഫ്റ്റർ സൈഡ് എഫക്ട്സ് റിപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ അവർ പറഞ്ഞു ഞങ്ങളിത് ഈ മരുന്നിനെക്കുറിച്ച്, ഈ കമ്പനിയുടെ മുഴുവൻ മരുന്നിനെക്കുറിച്ച് സ്റ്റഡി നടത്തി ഞങ്ങൾ ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിനെ അറിയിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞല്ലോ എന്നാണ് അവർ പറഞ്ഞത്. 2 ആഴ്ചയാവുന്നു ഞങ്ങളത് ഇത് നോട്ടീസ് കൊടുത്തിട്ട്, ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിനെല്ലാം അറിയിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ ആ ഡോക്ടർ ഞങ്ങളൊന്നും അറിഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ലല്ലോ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ അത് സംഘടനയുടെ പേരിൽ അവർ അയച്ചു കൊടുത്തിട്ടും അത് പുറത്ത് വന്നിട്ടില്ല. അതിൻ്റെ കാരണം എന്താണെന്ന് അറിയില്ല. എന്തായാലും അത് പിന്നെ ഇദ്ദേഹം തന്നെ ഗ്രൂപ്പുകളിൽ ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടാക്കി, എന്തുകൊണ്ട് ഇത് ഇട്ടില്ല എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ് പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടാക്കിയപ്പോഴാണ് പതുക്കെ ഇത് പുറത്ത് വരാൻ തുടങ്ങിയത്. ഇദ്ദേഹം
There is a much longer description. What I wanted to start my presentation today by saying that, see, unless we take bold steps like this, we are not going to address this problem. So Dr. Ghalib entered his presentation by saying that one person can make a change if he takes the initiative. This is an example of such one person who, because of his commitment to Ayurveda, decided to take that bold step of working against the system. And even then you can see, even though the notification was given by the drugs controller, there were a lot of vested interests who prevented that notice from coming outside. So what I want to say is, if we want to protect Ayurveda, I mean, we have to take up this responsibility. So I want to, with this brief introduction and an appeal to each one of us to take such kind of individual responsibility. We have a pharmacovigilance center, 2 centers in Kerala. If you notice any unwanted effect from the use of Ayurvedic medicines, it should be promptly reported and investigated. Sometimes it may be some malpractice that is actually the cause for this, and unless it is investigated and identified, we should not have a third person identifying it and blaming us. So let me put things very clearly. See, there is a very strong narrative developing against Ayurveda globally. Earlier, when I used to talk to Ministry of Ayush, Kotecha ji, many other people who are working, in very responsible positions, they all used to say that there will always be people who are, doing this wrong communication about Ayurveda. The best thing is to ignore them. We cannot always fight them. Even if you give the evidence, they will not agree. But that situation has changed now. They have created such a powerful narrative in social media that the very perception of Ayurveda is changing. Some days ago, a very reputed owner of an Ayurvedic pharmaceutical company called me with a lot of concern. He said, with the work of people like Abhi Phillips, what has happened in Kerala? People coming to study Ayurveda have plummeted, significantly. There are not many students coming to study Ayurveda. And he said the sales of Ayurvedic medicines has reduced to 25% for major pharma companies. And patients are beginning to panic. So when many patients are beginning to ask Ayurveda doctors whether the medicines that they are prescribing are harmful for the liver or harmful for the kidneys, what is the proof that it is safe? So the narrative is spreading very strongly. We cannot ignore it. And unless we take proper measures, their goal of eliminating Ayurveda or Ayush as a valid system of medicine, that agenda is really moving forward. So one of the major questions against Ayurveda is that Ayurveda does not by itself have adequate protocols to identify and check the toxicity of medicines. We don't have a self-checking system. So I don't know, you may have heard, sometime back in BMJ, there was a statement that the third leading cause of death is medical profession itself. This came from the US. Now, while many people like us use this to, tarnish, many Ayurveda people are quoting this, saying that modern medicine is the third leading cause of death. But they are perceiving it in a different way. What they are saying is that we have a system whereby we are able to detect what is wrong with and then take corrective measures. So in Ayurveda, we have no such data at all. How much is our treatments, how much. So I have been now following some of these things, and you can see the efforts against showing the toxicity and harm from Ayurveda is becoming more and more organized. So every single instance of anything being reported is being highlighted in social media, and I was shocked to see, it's a very recent post about Ashtavargam Kashayam, which is so commonly used. It has been attributed with liver toxicity, and it is coming from a reputed pharmacy like SNA. Abhi Phillips is also talking about writing. Dr. Ghalib was telling why we need good publications in reputed journals. They are doing just the opposite. There was an article which got rejected from. See, these articles are also getting rejected. Modern doctors, when they write against Ayurveda, they are also facing bias. Especially Indian journals are not accepting articles that have labeled Ayush or Ayurveda. So many of them are now going international and publishing in more reputed journals, and they are getting more visibility. So public health warnings against Ayurveda is very widespread. You take any American, European websites, health public websites, you can see there is a section warning about using Ayurvedic medicines. So this whole narrative that Ayurvedic medicines are toxic and poisonous is gaining momentum. Then there are reports about actual incidents. People reporting, poison in Ayurvedic drugs, case report of toxicity. So what I'm going to take, Prajesh is already looking at the watch. I will complete my talk very briefly. We have 2 more talks after this. So, I just want to summarize what are the major concerns that today is being perceived. What is being projected in the public domain as the narrative against Ayurveda. One is, of course, heavy metals. That the use of heavy metals in Ayurveda, purposeful use of heavy metals in our Rasa Shastra preparations in form of bhasmas, that is being very widely criticized. That Ayurveda is, there is 2 different things. One is that Ayurveda medicines may be accidentally contaminated with heavy metals. The other is purposeful use of heavy metals. Now this is drawing a lot of criticism, that Ayurveda is purposefully using metals and minerals without adequate understanding of their toxicity. And so the only way we can counter this, there are very few attempts in this area, one of which is M.S. Valia. It's an allopathic doctor, M.S. Valiathan, who tried to show that bhasmas and these heavy metal medicines may be safe. He published with a group an article which is still not an ultimate safety report of Rasa Sindhura, but it is an article which shows that when you process Rasa Sindhura in the Ayurvedic way, it may be undergoing changes that makes it safer. It is still hypothesis. It's not proven that because of this study that it is safe. So unless we have high quality studies which clearly demonstrate that, or I can tell you this is going to be a big challenge in the near future. Heavy metal contamination is another aspect, and people are not well aware of this distinction, that sometimes the toxicity is due to accidental contamination, sometimes it is due to purposeful use of medicines where you declare that this has mercury. Now in many medicines there is no declaration, but when they do a testing they find mercury. So here again the only solution is that our industry is still not coming up to this practice that every batch that is manufactured should be tested for heavy metals, and we must give a label in the label itself that this is free from heavy metals. This is not something which can be also, so I'm just talking about where pharmacovigilance is relevant, where we have to go even beyond pharmacovigilance to actually address these issues. Now many plants may themselves contain harmful chemicals. Dr. Ghalib was clearly mentioning everything natural is not safe. And plants are also collection of chemicals. We say modern medicine is chemical. A plant is 100,000 chemicals. It's not just one chemical. Modern medicine is only one chemical, whereas a plant has thousands of chemicals. So such plants needs to be used very carefully. If dosage is exceeded, so many poisonous plants are also used in Ayurveda. So we have to be very careful about that. Then this, I am not going into this. Dangerous drug-herb interactions, is another cause. So why we are getting safety issues are surrounding use of Ayurvedic medicines. Drug-herb interactions, Ghalib already mentioned. And then the addition of modern drugs in Ayurvedic medicine. We don't know how widespread this practice is. A lot of Ayurveda practitioners give unlabeled medicines they make at home and mix in. This practice is still there. And we do not know how, if this is found out, by a third person, this is going to bring a lot of disrepute to the Ayurvedic system. So this is the illegal practice that was recently discovered in Kerala, and this is the list of all the medicines. You can see pain nivarana churnam. They have a complete list of what was found in these Ayurvedic medications. So as Swamiji was also mentioning, that people are beginning to use a lot of patent medications. And many of these patent medications are supposedly giving quick results also. But we do not know if they have been adulterated with these modern medicines. So you can see many dangerous paracetamol, diclofenac. Diclofenac is definitely toxic if you take it for a long period of time. So many such medicines, I am not going into the details. So this is another reason why Ayurvedic medicines may cause unwanted effects. Then there is wrong choice of medicine. Then from an Ayurvedic perspective also, treatments may cause unwanted effects. If the medicine is wrongly prescribed, like an Ushna drug in a Pitta dominant condition, you must have seen the adverse IDR form displayed by Dr. Ghalib. All those conditions are put there as a checklist. So this can lead to unwanted side effects. Wrong dosing and method of administration. In Ayurveda, we have mentioned, more and more our practice is not based on Ayurvedic principles, the more chances of unwanted effects coming, because we have made it more disease-based approach. Ghee is to be licked in Pitta dominance, swallowed in Vata dominance. Ayurveda says that if in a Pitta dominance you give large quantity of ghee, it can produce side effects. So these are very subtle things which easily cannot be understood. An allopathic doctor who observes this might be saying that by giving ghee, the side effect has come. But it is actually not due to the ghee. It is because it has been given in a wrong condition in the wrong manner. There is misbranding of Ayurveda. This is another reason why a lot of toxic reports are coming. You must see, this is the Vicks Vaporub label. Vicks in India alone is marketed as Ayurvedic medicine, not in the rest of the world. So this is, and there was also a report on how Vicks caused eye damage, and the Ayurveda was blamed for that. So we have to be very careful. We have to protest the wrong labeling of products as Ayurveda, because for commercial advantage people are doing this. Now I am coming to the second part of my presentation. So I wanted to show you in the beginning that there is a serious problem, that if we keep ignoring this, Ayurveda is going to be now projected as one of the most dangerous practices in the world. That narrative is becoming stronger and stronger, and these are the various reasons why side effects. Now side effects are not being reported by Ayurveda physicians. Patients are reporting it, or allopathic doctors are finding it. In fact, when we started our pharmacovigilance center, we were trying to establish it in Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences, Kochi. If those of you who saw the list of the pharmacovigilance centers, you would have noticed that it is still listed as AIIMS Kochi. The reason was to have an interaction with allopathic doctors. So whenever they come out with some, encourage them to report the side effects to our pharmacovigilance center first, rather than on social media. But somehow we had to shift the pharmacovigilance center back to School of Ayurveda. Now it has become closed. If it was in AIIMS Kochi, we could have had a more dynamic interaction with the allopathic community and give them the confidence that if there is any unwanted effect, there is some system here to analyze and assess it. Now just a little more things before I conclude. See, it is 2014 I had written an editorial in Ancient Science of Life. I was interested in pharmacovigilance right from its inception. When I was working in AVP, this pharmacovigilance center first got set up in Jamnagar, and we had collaborated at that time in creating a software for this. So I'm very worried that what I thought about 10 years ago is still looking very relevant, and nothing much has happened. See, it has to be very well understood that nothing is absolutely safe. We should also start sensitizing our patients that there is nothing that is absolute. Charaka Samhita says, nahi kinchit, nacha kinchit adosha nirgunam. There is nothing without dosha and nothing without Guna. Guna bhuyastu mato vichintyate means we have to look at the risk benefit ratio. So please be aware. We did a study in AVP on Ayurveda and rheumatoid arthritis. Ayurveda group, methotrexate group, combination group. All the three groups had some adverse events. Even the Ayurvedic group had some adverse events. But the adverse events were highest in the group which used both allopathy and Ayurveda together, which means there were drug-herb interactions. Methotrexate group had more adverse events. Ayurveda had less adverse events. But what is interesting is that even with the Ayurvedic group was not adverse event free, which means our medicines may produce, they were minor adverse events, but still there were adverse events. So when our chikitsa becomes more and more shuddha, then only we can minimize the adverse events that may come in our population. In order to do that, we need to create a feedback system where we keep learning from our errors. See, what is Shuddha Chikitsa? Shuddha Chikitsa means creating a treatment protocol that will minimize the possibility of any side effect in your patient. This you learn, you develop into a Shuddha Chikitsa only through constant feedback. When I give a medicine to a person, I noticed a small side effect. I analyze it, I understand why it happened, next time it will not happen. So if there is no feedback system, so pharmacovigilance feedback is necessary for us to also develop Shuddha Chikitsa, not just for protecting. So every physician should be reporting whatever harmful events they have. That will help them to analyze the Shastra and become more clear. So one key point I want to highlight is that this should also become one of the subjects for Agada Tantra. Agada Tantra is now a marginalized branch. Ayurveda was one of the earliest systems to bring about the branch of toxicology. So toxicology later became reduced to poison healing, and now finally it has become very academic. It is, you are studying forensic medicine, modern forensic medicine, and then stopping it. But why can't Agada Tantra itself be developed to look at toxicity and safety of Ayurvedic medicines? So you can see that Ayurveda has a framework for broad classification of poisonous substances. We have a system of identifying toxicity. We have a system of grading toxicity. We have a system of understanding how normal substances can produce toxic effects. So yeah. See, in Ayurveda, we have even mentioned pepper itself. We have the Ayurvedic system of assessing toxicity was so refined that we have identified toxicity for even commonly used substances, like pepper is to be roasted in ghee and then only used. Otherwise, it will be toxic. So, for every small substance, we have even said ghee is poison. Pakveshu dosheshu amridam tad vishobhamam anyatha. So how a particular substance, in what context it will become toxic, is that framework is there in Ayurveda. That we have to bring in, through the study of, it should be part of Agada Tantra. There are toxic medicinal plants. There are chronic poisons described in Ayurveda. And also, Ayurveda has used toxins also as medicine. So here again, we need protocols on how to safely use it. Ayurvedic, I think today we are having a couple of talks also from KC and Panchakarma, because iatrogenic diseases, wrong use of, one of the reasons why adverse events happen is not necessarily due to the inherent toxicity of the system. Majority of the time it is due to misuse or abuse. When something is inherently toxic, what do? You should have a protocol for using it safely. So I want to summarize all these adverse events and toxicity in two categories. One is by improper use. Even a very safe medicine, yatha visham, yatha shastram, yatha agnir, ashanir yatha, tatha ushatham, avijñādam, vijñādam amritam yatha. So when a medicine is wrongly used, it can produce unwanted side effects. So how do we know that? Unless we report it, unless we analyze, discuss. So when there is an adverse event, you must know whether it is due to wrong use or whether it is due to an inherent property of that substance itself. So if it is due to adding of a toxin, lead or some such toxin has entered into it, then there is no way of using it safely. It is because that is inherently toxic. So what is needed in Ayurveda is that we need to identify this. One major, what will be the outcome of a pharmacovigilance? Outcome of a pharmacovigilance means you must declare to the public what are the risks associated with the use of a medication. Now when you have sodium benzoate in your formulation, and if it is likely to cause acidity, you have to put it in the label that this may cause acidity. Recently I was having an acute chest congestion and I was traveling, and I thought, okay, this time I will use some modern medicine to quickly get some relief. I went and got some cough syrup, and after reading the warnings on the label, I decided not to take it because it was mentioned that my liver may fail and my kidney may also fail if I take that medicine. So I decided not to use it. This is what they are telling. What modern doctors are telling is that we are not declaring the risks associated with the use of our medication. What is a safe use? So what it clearly mentioned was you should not use it without consulting a medical practitioner. It is a medicine which is available over the counter. So that is a care that is being given in educating the public about what are the risks associated. Whereas Ayurvedic medicines, we are flouting them as absolutely safe. And then when something happens, people can question us. Now they are safe because if I got a liver damage with that medicine, the pharmaceutical company which made it will say that we had already mentioned that in the label. So on the other hand, I want to turn the tables, just 2 or 3 more slides and I will conclude. Is that, see, why I am saying Agada Tantra is that we can also turn the tables again by providing solutions to see. Today we are living in a world which is toxic in so many ways. Although this new narrative is seeming to make us believe that Ayurveda is adding toxicity in our lives, from our mobiles to the food that we eat, the environment, everything is toxic. So much of toxicity coming from so many sources, air pollution. Ayurveda also has a solution for these toxic exposures in modern times. And vegetables are toxic. Why? Because pesticides are being used. Is it not? The fish is toxic because they are taking so much of mercury. Our air is toxic. Now Ayurveda also has solutions for dealing with these toxicities. This is one area where we should work, and we can create a counter narrative about how Ayurveda can help to solve many of the toxic problems that we are facing today. Ayurveda can help reduce toxicity of modern. So on the one hand, we must acknowledge that we must start reporting whenever we see an adverse event, look at it, identify what it could be, make sure it will not happen again, give necessary, all that is there. But before I conclude, what I want to say is we can create also a counter narrative. A counter narrative is like, for example, can you see this medicine? It's not so clear. This is, rifampicin. Do you know what is rifampicin? It's used in the management of tuberculosis. It's a very toxic drug. And they have found that you can see here rifampicin is added with piperine. Piperine is a compound found in long pepper and pepper. So this is in Ayurveda we use it as a prakshepa dravya because it increases the bioavailability of all the drugs in formulations. So with less medication you will get more effect. Now it has been found that when we are talking about drug-herb interactions, if we can do good research and show how Ayurveda can reduce the toxicity of modern drugs, that will create a counter narrative. These are also creative ways in which we can look at this problem. So what I want to conclude and say is that we need to have an insider's view. See, in Ayurveda research, everything has happened through outsiders. We are happily just trying to survive and live a life somehow. That has to change. Research started in Ayurveda through outsiders. Where European colonists came, they documented Sushruta surgery, they documented inoculation. After that, historians came and studied about Ayurveda. Then scientists started studying. Even today, if you look at, do you know who has the highest citations and highest publications in the field of Ayurveda? It's not an Ayurveda physician. It's Bhushan Patwardhan. He is the most influential. And if you ask him, he says, I am not an Ayurveda person. I am only sympathetic to Ayurveda. So everything we are waiting for things to happen from outside. What we need is an insider's view. We have to tell the world what is safe, what is not safe in Ayurveda. We should not let the outside community to dictate and create a narrative that is tarnishing us. So I say that we should also revisit Agada Tantra. Agada Tantra would be a good, I know Prajesh may not be so happy about this because he's associating pharmacovigilance with Rasa Shastra. Rasa Shastra is also interesting because it is one of the subjects which is associated with a lot of claims of toxicity. But I think it is Agada Tantra that can give us this overall perspective. We have our own system of monitoring safety, establishing safety protocols, how to classify substances, how to deal with these toxicities. So we have to come with our own system inspired by Ayurveda, and that should be incorporated into the pharmacovigilance program also. So what I am suggesting is a three-pronged strategy. We will need to create primary evidence from the codified text itself. We need to classify every herb, every formulation. See, how did our acharyas tell us whether a drug is unsafe or not? They gave us clues by telling the dosha haratvam, by telling the virya, by telling the... So if a dravya is vatahara but pitta vardhaga, what does it mean? That it will cause some side effect. Aggravation of pitta is a side effect. Every herb we have given a profile like this. That has to be the primary evidence on which we assess the safety or efficacy of a substance. There are very few dravyas which have said as tridoshahara, which means it's very unlikely to cause a side effect. Dravyas which are not tridoshahara are always going to cause side effects. So we get a lot of clues from our own shastras. The second is the evidence from living practices. See, one of the ways which we can see, one case of Ashtavargam Kashayam causing liver damage, which is also not established. But if we have a million narratives of Ashtavargam not causing liver damage, which will be stronger? We don't have the counter narrative. We are not doing the documentation. If we do the documentation of all our practices and show that, these medicines are also safe in long-term use. And third is the tertiary evidence. Tertiary evidence should come from modern scientific studies. So I'm suggesting a three-pronged strategy. Primary evidence of safety and toxicity come from classical Ayurvedic texts. Secondary level of evidence coming from living practices, from documentation, and the third through scientific studies. If we bring these three things together, I think we can bring a new approach in Ayurvedic pharmacovigilance and create a counter narrative through which we can help people understand what Ayurveda is all about. Okay, thank you.
A sincere gratitude to Dr. Ram Manohar for his insightful session on toxicity of Ayurvedic herbs and formulation. We are grateful for his contribution to our understanding of topic. Thank you, Ram Manohar sir, for your informative session. We welcome Dr. Priya S., HOD of Department of Dravya Guna, to felicitate Dr. Ram Manohar sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.